Let me tell you something I learned a long time ago. You don't have to chase money to become wealthy. You must chase understanding. You see, most people are running after dollars when they should be running after disciplines. They're working harder at their jobs than they are on themselves. And that's why money slips through their fingers like sand. We've been taught to believe that wealth begins with a paycheck, but that's not true. Wealth begins with a philosophy. It begins the moment you stop asking, how do I get more money? And start asking, how do I become more valuable? Because money is not a reward, it's a reflection. It reflects your mindset, your habits, and the value you bring to the marketplace. I've met people who made a fortune and lost it all, and others who started with nothing and built an empire. The difference wasn't the economy, the family background, or the timing. It was belief. The way they thought about money determined whether they would multiply it or repel it. If you believe money is scarce, you'll always find ways to lose it. If you believe money is abundant, you'll always find ways to create it. Here's a truth that may sting a little. Your income can't grow beyond your identity. You can't hold on to what you secretly believe you don't deserve. So, if deep down you think you're not good with money, or that wealth is for other people, your subconscious will make sure that becomes true. But when you start to shift that belief, when you begin to see yourself as capable, deserving, and responsible, money starts finding its way to you, not by luck, but by alignment. Tonight, I want to challenge your beliefs. I want to talk about the thoughts you've carried for years, the ones that whisper, money is hard to make, or people like me never get ahead. Because those thoughts are the real thieves of wealth. Not the taxman, not inflation, your own thinking. So, as we begin, ask yourself this simple question. What do I really believe about money? Because until you change that answer, nothing in your financial life will change. But the moment you do, the moment you transform your thinking, you'll realize that your first million doesn't start in your bank account. It starts in your mind. I've often said that wealth isn't first something you hold in your hands. It's something you hold in your head. If you don't fix the way you think about money, no amount of income will ever make you rich. Because the truth is, you don't get paid by the hour, you get paid for the value you bring to that hour. And value doesn't increase until your mindset does. Most people spend their entire lives trying to change their circumstances, but few ever stop changing themselves. The secret is simple: your income rarely exceeds your personal development. If you want to have more, you must first become more. Now, I've met people who earned fortunes and lost them just as quickly. They changed their bank accounts, but not their philosophies. See, the difference between the poor and the wealthy isn't money, it's thinking. The poor think in terms of lack. The wealthy think in terms of growth. The poor ask, can I afford it? While the wealthy ask, how can I afford it? That one little change in language turns limitation into creativity. The moment you replace excuses with questions, your mind begins to work for you instead of against you. I remember when I was working as a farm boy, making only a few dollars a day. I wasn't poor because of the wages, I was poor because of my thinking. I had no idea that wealth was a mindset. Then one day, my mentor told me something that shifted my entire life. Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. That was the day I stopped blaming my circumstances and started improving my philosophy. It wasn't the economy, my job, or my luck holding me back. It was the way I thought about money, opportunity, and myself. The first step to financial freedom is to examine the beliefs you've inherited. Write them down. Challenge everyone that begins with, I can't, I'll never, or that's not for people like me. Then start replacing them with powerful questions and empowering words. Surround yourself with people who speak the language of abundance, those who talk about possibilities, investments, and growth instead of gossip and scarcity. Because your environment is shaping your beliefs every single day. If you want to change your finances, start by changing your philosophy. Wealth begins in the mind long before it ever reaches your wallet. Poverty, my friends, isn't simply the absence of money. It's the absence of the right mindset. You can take two people, give them the same tools, the same opportunities, even the same setbacks, and yet one will rise while the other stays stuck. Why? Because the same wind blows on us all. The wind of opportunity, the wind of challenge, the wind of change, but it's how you set your sail that makes the difference. You see, the problem isn't the wind. It's the direction of your sail. The poor wait for calm seas. The wise learn how to navigate storms. When I first began studying success, I thought wealth was about luck, about who was born into the right family, who got the right break, or who happened to be in the right place at the right time. But then I met people who had started with nothing, no money, no education, no special advantage, and built lives of abundance through sheer discipline and perspective. They didn't wait for the economy to improve. They improved themselves. That's when I learned that poverty is not a permanent condition. It's a temporary reflection of limited thinking. You see, the danger of poverty is not just financial, it's psychological. It teaches you to settle, to expect little, to doubt much. It convinces you that your current situation defines your potential. But wealth begins when you refuse to accept that lie. The day you stop complaining about what you don't have and start studying how to create more, you take your first step toward freedom. It's not your bank balance that determines your destiny. It's your belief balance. And beliefs, my friend, can be changed. If you want to rewire your mind from poverty to prosperity, start by changing your reference points. Read the stories of men and women who rose from the ashes, entrepreneurs, inventors, dreamers, who started where you are and went further than anyone thought possible. You'll find that wealth isn't inherited. It's created in the mind long before it appears in the account. And every day, remind yourself of the abundance you already possess. If you have health, you're rich. If you have time to learn, you're wealthy. If you can dream, plan, and act, you already have more than most ever will. Poverty ends the moment you stop thinking like a victim and start acting like a creator. The wind will always blow, but from this day forward, make sure your sail is set for abundance. You don't get paid for the hours you work. You get paid for the value you bring to those hours. That truth, once it sinks deep enough, will change the way you approach your career, your business, and your life. You see, too many people are busy counting the clock instead of increasing their worth. They say, I work 8 hours a day. I should be rich by now. But time doesn't make you rich. Value does. 10 people can work the same 8 hours, yet one earns 10 times more because he's become 10 times more valuable. The secret isn't in the hours, it's in the person working those hours. Early in my life, I worked as a clerk earning little more than survival money. I thought, if only I could find a better job, I'd do better. But a wise mentor once told me, don't wish for a better job. Wish to be better at the job you have. That changed everything. He said, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. If you become more valuable, you'll attract more value. That was the turning point. From that moment, I stopped waiting for someone to pay me more. I started earning it by improving what I could offer. The marketplace doesn't respond to need, it responds to value. You can stand up and say, I need more money, but the market is deaf to need. The market rewards contribution, innovation, and problem solving. If you want your income to rise, your usefulness must rise first. Learn a new skill. Sharpen an old one. Study the art of communication, leadership, selling, persuasion, or management, because every skill you master adds another zero to your potential. Every day you grow, you make yourself harder to replace and easier to reward. Here's the real test at the end of each day. Ask yourself, did I add more value today than yesterday? That one question will keep you accountable. Replace an hour of mindless entertainment with an hour of education. Use that time to feed your mind instead of distracting it. The books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the people you learn from, All of these are investments in the most profitable business you'll ever own yourself. The truth is simple. Your paycheck is not your worth. It's just your reflection. And the reflection changes the moment you do. So, don't chase more money, chase more mastery. Because when you become more, you'll inevitably earn more. Most people live their entire lives as consumers. They buy, they spend, they use, and then they repeat. They wake up each day thinking about what they'll get rather than what they'll give. But here's the truth: consumers make a living, creators make a fortune. The poor buy the product, the wealthy build the product. The question is, which side do you want to live on? Because wealth isn't built by the people who line up to buy. It's built by the ones who create what people line up for. I remember when I used to sit in the audience, watching successful people on stage, thinking, aren't they lucky? I thought they had something special, maybe a secret connection, maybe a bit of luck. But later, I learned that luck is simply what happens when preparation meets opportunity. These people weren't lucky, they were creators. While others spent their time consuming entertainment, they were creating value. While others were buying products, they were designing them. While others were waiting for something to happen, they were busy making it happen. See, there's a powerful shift that happens when you move from a consumer mindset to a creator mindset. You stop asking, what can I buy? And start asking, what can I build? You stop scrolling through social media and start studying what makes those platforms profitable. You begin to see the world differently. Every problem becomes an opportunity. Every frustration a possible business. Instead of saying, someone should fix this, you start saying, maybe I can fix this. That's where wealth begins, not in buying things, but in building them. Start small. Create something today, maybe a blog, a digital product, a service, or even a new skill. Don't worry about perfection, worry about contribution. When you create value, the marketplace rewards you. That's the law. You don't need to invent the next big thing. You just need to improve one small thing people already value. Spend less time consuming and more time producing. Read less about success and write your own story of it. Every great fortune began with a moment of creation, someone deciding to stop being a customer and start being a contributor. The day you stop asking, what's in it for me? And start asking, what can I bring to the table? Is the day your financial life begins to transform. Because wealth doesn't flow to consumers, it flows to creators. Gratitude is one of those quiet forces that the world often overlooks, yet it carries an incredible power, the power to multiply what you already have. You see, it's easy to be grateful when life is good, when money is flowing, and success feels near. But the real test is whether you can be thankful before the results show up, when you're still in the process, still learning, still struggling. Because gratitude is not just a reaction, it's a mindset, a way of seeing the world that shifts you from scarcity to abundance. And the moment you make that shift, everything about your life, including your finances, begins to change. I remember a time when I had very little, no big house, no wealth, no success to show off. But I did have a vision, and I decided to start being grateful for the smallest things: a meal, a lesson, a book, a friend who believed in me. That attitude didn't change my bank account overnight, but it changed me. And once I changed, everything else followed. Gratitude opens doors because it trains your mind to see opportunity instead of limitation. When you're thankful, your focus moves from what's missing to what's possible. People often wonder why some seem to attract more success, more wealth, more opportunities. It's because they live in a state of appreciation. They recognize effort, they celebrate progress, they give thanks before the reward comes. When you walk around full of envy, comparing your life to others, you close yourself off to growth. But when you replace envy with appreciation, when you see someone successful and think, that's proof of what's possible for me too, you align yourself with abundance instead of resistance. Each morning, take a moment to write down 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be grand. Even the smallest blessings count. Then, express that gratitude to others. Thank the mentor who guided you, the friend who encouraged you, the challenge that strengthened you. Gratitude compounds, just like money does. The more you practice it, the richer you feel, and soon, the richer you become. Wealth doesn't flow to those who complain about what's missing. It flows to those who appreciate what's already present. Be thankful for what you have while you pursue what you want, and watch how life gives you more to be thankful for. Wealth has less to do with money and more to do with time, how you think about it, how you respect it, and how you use it. Most people live for the moment. They trade tomorrow's security for today's pleasure. They want comfort now, results now, and rewards now. But those who build real wealth understand a truth, that few ever master prosperity belongs to the patient. The wealthy think long-term. They plan their future not by chance, but by choice. They're willing to endure the short-term pain of discipline to avoid the lifelong pain of regret. There was a time in my early years when I lived just for today. Every paycheck was spent before it arrived. I thought earning more would fix my problems, but I learned that earning more without planning more is like pouring water into a bucket full of holes. It wasn't until I started thinking in terms of years instead of days that my life began to change. I began saving before I spent, and I started asking myself, how will this decision affect me not just this week, but in 5 years? That single question reshaped my entire relationship with money. The poor often see money as something to be used. The wealthy see it as something to be multiplied. The poor consume their profits. The wealthy reinvest them. The poor focus on instant gratification. The wealthy focus on eventual freedom. You see, the game of wealth is not about what you can get quickly. It's about what you can sustain permanently. Every dollar saved and reinvested is a seed planted for the future. And just like a seed, it needs time to grow. But when it does, it grows exponentially. If you're always chasing quick rewards, you'll always be one step behind. But when you start playing the long game, saving before spending, investing before indulging, life begins to compound in your favor. One disciplined choice today can eliminate 100 desperate choices tomorrow. Discipline may feel painful in the moment, but regret weighs much heavier. Choose the pain of discipline because it builds strength, stability, and security. Every wise decision today writes a chapter of freedom tomorrow. Wealth doesn't come to those who rush. It comes to those who plan, persist, and prepare. Money has an interesting way of revealing the truth about who we are. It's not a savior, it's a magnifier. It doesn't change your character, it amplifies it. If you're generous when you have little, you'll be even more generous when you have much. But if you're careless, bitter, or dishonest with a little, money will only make that problem louder. That's why the pursuit of wealth without the pursuit of wisdom is a dangerous road. You can have more money than you ever imagined and still feel empty, anxious, or unfulfilled if you haven't built yourself first. I remember meeting a man once who said, "If I could just make $1 million, I'd be happy." Years later, he did make that million, but his life was still in chaos. He didn't fix his habits, he didn't fix his attitude, and he didn't fix his relationships. The same man who was broke at one level was simply broke at a higher level. You see, money doesn't solve emotional bankruptcy, it exposes it. The goal is not to have more money to become happy, but to become the kind of person who can handle more money wisely, joyfully, and responsibly. That's why it's so important to work as hard on your character as you do on your career. The wealth you build will only ever rise to the level of your discipline, integrity, and emotional maturity. If your values are weak, your fortune will crumble under pressure. But if your values are strong, honesty, gratitude, patience, your wealth will have a foundation that can't be shaken. And here's a truth few understand. Giving builds that foundation. When you give, even when it's uncomfortable, you prove to yourself that money doesn't control you, you control it. Giving teaches you that wealth is not ownership, it's stewardship. The wealthy give not because they have so much, but because they understand how much they've been given. So don't chase money to fix your problems. Grow yourself, and money will find its way to you. Because money, by its very nature, flows toward value, and when you become more valuable, both in skill and in spirit, it will naturally follow. Always remember, money is not the master, it's the mirror. It will reflect exactly who you are when it finally arrives. Wealth, my friends, is not a trophy to display, it's a responsibility to carry. Too many people dream of becoming millionaires for what the money can buy. The cars, the houses, the freedom to do whatever they please. But the real purpose of wealth isn't indulgence, it's stewardship. The goal isn't just to earn more, it's to become more so that you can do more for others. Because the truth is, money will not make you great. It will only give you the opportunity to express the greatness you've built inside. When you grow into a person capable of handling wealth, something changes in your spirit. You begin to understand that wealth is not about ownership. It's about management, managing opportunities, managing influence, managing impact. The world doesn't need more rich people who hoard what they have. It needs more responsible people who multiply what they've been given, not just for themselves, but for the people who depend on them. You see, money in the right hands becomes a tool for transformation. It builds schools, funds ideas, supports families, and creates jobs. But in the wrong hands, it becomes a weapon of waste and pride. I've met people who thought wealth would solve their problems. They believed the arrival of money would bring them happiness, order, and peace. Yet, when they finally earned it, they realized that money doesn't organize your life, you do. It doesn't bring discipline, you must already have it. Wealth magnifies responsibility, and if you haven't prepared for it, it will feel like a burden instead of a blessing. That's why the process of becoming wealthy is more valuable than the wealth itself. It teaches you patience, strategy, humility, and the art of giving. One of the most beautiful moments in a person's financial journey is when they begin to give back, not because they have to, but because they want to. Teaching others what you've learned, helping someone avoid the mistakes you once made, investing in a cause that outlives you. That's where true wealth begins to mean something. When you reach that level, you no longer measure your fortune in dollars, but in difference. Remember, this money grows best in the hands of those who respect it. When you treat it as a servant and not a master, when you use it to uplift others and not to prove your worth, it multiplies. Wealth is not the final reward for hard work. It is the ongoing responsibility of wisdom. You can't grow rich with a poor identity. The greatest barrier between most people and wealth is not opportunity, not education, not luck. It's identity. How you see yourself determines how far you can go. The truth is, your bank account will always reflect your mindset. If deep down you believe you're not the kind of person who deserves abundance, your subconscious will quietly work to make sure your life matches that belief. You'll miss opportunities, sabotage your efforts, and call it bad luck. When in reality, it's simply a reflection of who you believe yourself to be. Becoming wealthy isn't about chasing money. It's about transforming identity. The journey to financial success is more about who you become than what you earn. Because if someone gives a poor thinker $1 million, chances are, within a few years, they'll lose it. But if you take away everything from a true wealth builder, they'll find a way to earn it all back. Why? Because wealth is built from the inside out. The mind that knows how to attract it, sustain it, and grow it is far more powerful than the money itself. When I was young, I used to believe that success was about working harder, putting in more hours, grinding longer, doing more than anyone else. But I learned something humbling. It's not the hours that make you rich. It's the mindset behind those hours. You can't outwork a poor identity. If your thoughts are rooted in scarcity, no amount of effort will create lasting abundance. The soil must be changed before the seed can grow. That's why I often tell people start with a declaration. Write down an identity statement that defines the person you're becoming. Something like, I am a disciplined, valuable creator of wealth. Read it every morning until it becomes part of your belief system. Because the moment your self-image changes, your habits follow. You'll start making decisions aligned with your future, not your fears. Study how the wealthy think, speak, and act. Observe their posture, their patience, their priorities. Wealthy people don't say, "I can't afford it." They ask, "How can I afford it?" They don't say, "I'm bad with money." They say, "I'm learning to master money." The difference may seem small, but words shape worlds. Every time you repeat a limiting phrase, you reinforce the prison you live in. Change your language, and you'll begin to change your life. The key to breaking poverty, mentally and financially, is to stop identifying with lack. You are not your past mistakes. You are not your current balance sheet. You are a becoming being, constantly evolving, learning, and building capacity for more. And the more you see yourself as capable, worthy, and valuable, the more life begins to reflect that back to you. The greatest reward for becoming wealthy isn't the money. It's the strength, wisdom, and identity you develop along the way. Because when your mind grows richer, your world can't help but follow. Wealth grows where wisdom flows. The truth is, money flows toward those who understand it, respect it, and know how to multiply it. You can hand two people the same opportunity, the same resources, and even the same starting point, yet one will create abundance while the other barely survives. The difference: wisdom. Financial wisdom is the ultimate compounder. It multiplies long before the money ever does. You can lose money and earn it again, but lose wisdom, and you lose the foundation upon which every fortune is built. I've often said, miss a meal if you have to, but never miss a book, because what you feed your mind determines what you can hold in your hands. When I was young, I didn't understand the power of learning. I thought experience was enough. But I soon realized that experience without reflection just repeats the same mistakes. Wisdom, on the other hand, shortens your learning curve. It helps you see around corners. It gives you eyes for opportunities that others walk past every day. The wealthy aren't luckier. They're simply more informed, more observant, and more prepared to recognize value when it shows up. When I first began studying success, I didn't have much. I worked long hours, and I barely scraped by. But I made a promise to myself every single day. I would learn something that could move me forward. Sometimes it was a book, sometimes a seminar, sometimes a mentor's advice. But I studied, I took notes, I reviewed them. And slowly my income began to grow, not because the world changed, but because I did. Knowledge doesn't just open doors, it builds the key that unlocks them. Now, most people spend hours entertaining themselves and wonder why their lives don't change. But education is what transforms time into progress. Replace 30 minutes of entertainment with 30 minutes of education, and in a year, you'll be unrecognizable. Read about finance, communication, leadership, and human behavior. Because money doesn't follow people who merely work hard. It follows those who understand how value moves through the world. Each week, take a moment to reflect and ask, what did I learn that made me wiser? Wisdom is not measured by how much you know, but by how much you apply. One idea acted upon is worth more than 100 stored away. The more you grow in understanding, the more you'll begin to see opportunities that others miss entirely, because wisdom sharpens vision, and clear vision creates wealth. So, commit to a lifetime of learning. Guard your curiosity like treasure, because that's exactly what it is. Wealth is not a race, it's a revelation, and it reveals itself to the mind that keeps seeking. Remember, the richer your wisdom, the richer your world. Scarcity thinking is the silent thief of wealth. It doesn't announce itself with noise or chaos. It whispers quietly in your thoughts, convincing you that there's not enough to go around, that others' success takes away from your chances, that money is something to fear rather than understand. That's the mindset that keeps millions poor, not by circumstance, but by belief. You see, you cannot accumulate what you secretly resent. If deep down you believe that wealth is corrupt, unfair, or undeserved, your mind will find subtle ways to repel it, even when opportunities are staring you right in the face. When I was young, I used to think rich people had some secret that ordinary folks didn't. I thought maybe they were just born with luck on their side. But over time, I realized something powerful. Wealth isn't built by luck, it's built by belief. The wealthy don't think in terms of scarcity, they think in terms of creation. They don't ask, who will give me? They ask, what can I give, build, or multiply? Scarcity says, there isn't enough. Abundance says, there's always more to create. The difference between the two determines not just your income, but your entire experience of life. Scarcity breeds fear, and fear paralyzes action. When you believe there's not enough, you play it safe, you hesitate, you cling to what you have instead of growing it. But abundance comes through movement, through giving, learning, and creating. That's why those who give, even when they have little, often find more coming their way. Giving is not just generosity. It's training the mind to believe that there's always more where that came from. I've met people who gave when they could hardly afford to, and somehow they always had enough. And I've met others who hoarded every penny, and somehow they were always afraid of losing it. So, if you want to invite wealth, start by changing your relationship with it. Replace guilt with gratitude. Instead of saying, it's selfish to want money, say it's responsible to build wealth that helps others. Write affirmations that honor prosperity, words that remind you that money is neither good nor evil, it's neutral. It takes on the nature of the hands that hold it. And if those hands are guided by purpose, gratitude, and wisdom, money becomes a tool for good. Each time you give, you're sending a message to your subconscious that you live in abundance. Giving breaks the chains of fear and rewires your mind for growth. It says, I trust the flow of life. I trust that as I release, more will return. The poor see giving as loss. The wealthy see it as partnership with the laws of abundance. So, let go of scarcity thinking. It's the enemy of wealth and the prison of potential. When you stop seeing money as something to fear and start viewing it as something to steward, life opens up. Remember, abundance doesn't start in the bank. It starts in the mind. And once your mind believes there's more than enough, the world will begin to prove you right.